I'm Daniel Hill. I've been a member of the Albinism Fellowship since I was about 2 years old. I've been looking after the website and the online stuff for the Albinism Fellowship for about 10 years now, and about 5 years ago I was invited to join the trustee board. So I'm now a trustee responsible for all of the fellowship's online communications. I grew up in Surrey, went to mainstream schools. The middle and secondary schools I went to both had special needs units attached to them, so I had teaching assistants who could support me with things like enlarging work and copying notes down from the blackboard, but I was still in with the other children and basically got to socialise with them as you would in any normal school, and I think that was a definite benefit over going to a specialist visually impaired school. Went to university at Oxford to study computer science, and again had some assistance but was mostly independent. Lecturers were all very helpful, provided me with written notes of what they were going to write on the blackboard and made sure that all the paperwork was enlarged for me. I'm now working in the City of London in the IT and finance industry. I used to work for the Bank of England for about 5 years. I now work for a commodities exchange in the City of London. Most of the assistance was things like when we got given a worksheet that we had to fill in, or a question paper, or an article that we had to read, or for example a map in geography where the text would be too small for me to read easily. So the assistant would take the original, go and copy it onto the photocopier up to 150% size, and then I would be able to use, I basically had to carry lots of large A3 sheets around with me. I also had a laptop from about the age of 9 or 10 that I could take to all school classrooms, and any work that was written, so English class, that sort of thing, I could write using that rather than having to write by hand. And my handwriting comes in two flavours, fast or legible, so I wouldn't have been able to keep up with the rest of the class if I had to write things by hand, but being able to touch type and write everything on a computer, I could keep up and in some cases keep ahead of the rest of the class. Well, the one thing I really didn't want to do and didn't like doing and struggled with was PE, which I think is probably common to a lot of visually impaired people. Certainly games like tennis, football, rugby, there's no way I could keep up with the rest of the class because basically I couldn't catch things for toffee, and I'd have difficulty seeing if a ball was flying towards my face at high speed. So in those circumstances, quite often I would get the option to, instead of going with the rest of the class for PE, I would get to do a session in, we had a gym as part of the school, so it was just me and my teaching assistant would do a session in there instead of going out onto the field and playing football or rugby, which meant that I still got the benefit from the healthy exercise without the risk of being hit in the face by a rugby ball. But I don't think that's anything to do with my vision. I think that's just because I'm a lazy so-and-so. I like to spend time sitting at home playing with my computer or watching TV rather than being out and about. But I think that's a matter of personality rather than anything. And I do get out and I go work for a miniature railway up in Acton, and quite often that involves a lot of digging and shoveling and running up and down, so there's a lot of exercise that I get through other activities as well. And I like to walk places as well, because I have no car, can't drive. Quite often the only way I can get to somewhere is my own 2 feet. So I'll quite happily walk a mile, mile and a half from where I live down to the local village to get to the shops there, or get a fish and chips and walk back, and it all helps. Generally speaking, it's not too big a problem. When I came to renting and eventually buying a house, I deliberately targeted somewhere where I knew there would be good transport links, that I've got 2 local railway stations on different lines within 10 minutes walk of me, so I can get to most places by train fairly easily. And I spend a lot of my time up in London as well, and of course there's an excellent bus, tube, train network, so it's very rare that I have difficulty getting around. The one key item that I do have that I find absolutely indispensable is I've got a monocular, which allows me to read things like train information boards, bus numbers, anything like that, and gives me that extra bit of independence and allows me to see where I'm going without having to ask people or hope that there's some automated announcement. I think the biggest thing really, it's changed a little from when I was younger. When I was younger, I think the key thing is being able to socialise with other people with albinism, and be with people who had some of the similar issues, and suddenly I think I and my parents found benefit in talking to other parents and older people with albinism and being able to pick up tips and experiences from them. And these days for me it's very much more a social event that I have a lot of friends with albinism, quite a lot of them are scattered around the UK, so it's nice to have events where we can all meet up and chat, and you can spend some time talking about issues that fully sighted people don't understand because they just never had the same experiences. And you find that you've got common problems and you can sit down and have a moan about how bus numbers are difficult to read and how much of a pain the sunlight is, and even discuss things like the best kind of baseball cap to buy. Lots of people that I've met at Albinism Fellowship events I've exchanged contact details with and kept in touch with, and some of the older people with albinism, the adults, we meet up every couple of months in London and just go to a pub for a drink, and because we're outside the auspices of the fellowship proper, we can let our hair down a little bit more and complain a bit more about life and be a bit more open about some of the things that maybe aren't as appropriate in events with lots of families. It's hard to say really, because without knowing what my personality would have been otherwise, I think it certainly made me a bit more stubborn about some things and more persistent, and that I won't let my vision cause me any problems. I won't let it hamper my independence, and I will do what I want to do regardless. Albinism is something I have, but it doesn't define me, and I still do the normal things that somebody of my age would do.